It goes without saying that people change over time, but sometimes filmmakers rejig a character's personality in such a sudden way that it seems jarring and unconvincing. And this is perhaps more common in horror than any other genre, where producers and filmmakers appreciate the appeal of fine-tuning their evergreen characters in the pursuit of ongoing box office bucks across 8, 9 or even 10 movies. Perhaps these characters suddenly develop a sense of humour, have their IQ conveniently dropped 50 points, or simply betrayed their established character from previous films. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie with What Culture, here with 10 horror movie characters whose personalities suddenly changed in sequels. Number 10. Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre depicted its chainsaw-wielding antagonist Leatherface as a terrifyingly animalistic, mostly one-dimensional blunt object, a mentally disabled man who kills as instructed to by his family. But the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is a considerably campier affair, effectively a not-so-thinly veiled parody of the original movie which presents Leatherface quite differently. In short, the sequel gives us the horny Leatherface none of us ever expected. Here, he is hopelessly enamoured with human protagonist Stretch, and even thrusts his chainsaw around as a substitute penis because why the hell not? Some fans argue that this is simply a case of the emotionally stunted Leatherface going through some belated personal development, but the lovesick puppy depicted here is nevertheless a far cry from the ferocious, no-nonsense Leatherface encountered in the first film. There's no denying the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2's stature as a cult classic, even if for many who love the original it turned Leatherface into too much of a joke. Number 9. Chucky in Child's Play 2. Child's Play gave the world one of the most original and popular horror movie villains of all time, murderous good guy doll Chucky. Even with the premise being so inherently ridiculous, Chucky is a serious piece of work in the first film, and once he learns that he needs to transfer his soul into the first human he revealed himself to, 6-year-old Andy Barkley, he doesn't waste much time trying to complete the ritual. Chucky fails, of course, but is resurrected for Child's Play 2, where temporary death has apparently turned him into a bit of an idiot. Though Chucky again attempts to transfer his soul into Andy's body, the staggering lack of urgency on his part makes no sense at all, routinely diverting to kill people, screw around and basically do anything but complete the task at hand. This is all while Chucky is acutely aware of a ticking clock which will keep him trapped in the doll body if he doesn't soon complete the ritual. And alas, at film's end, the spell fails because, shocker, Chucky spent too long as the doll. Considering how ruthlessly efficient Chucky was in the first film, he's comparatively stupid in the sequel, presumably because Child's Play 2 wouldn't be much of a movie if Chucky just got on with it. Number 8. Dr. Lawrence Gordon in Saw 3D. Ever since Dr. Lawrence Gordon sawed off his foot and crawled out of Jigsaw's bathroom in the original Saw, fans hoped that he might one day return to the series, perhaps even as a secret apprentice helping Jigsaw. And for better or worse, fans finally got their wish in the 7th film, Saw 3D. Gordon appears in a few brief scenes throughout the movie, most notably the outrageous twist ending, where it's revealed that after Gordon escaped Jigsaw's bathroom, Jiggy nursed him back to health and installed him as yet another secret apprentice. And so, Saw 3D ends with Gordon kidnapping the villainous detective Hoffman and locking him in the series' iconic bathroom to die. While on one hand it delivered the nutty twist fans had been expecting for years, the film did a frankly terrible job of providing a convincing explanation for Gordon's allegiance shift. Number 7. Dr. Samuel Loomis in Halloween 5: The Revenge of Michael Myers. Dr. Loomis is as much a part of the Halloween series' DNA as Michael Myers or Laurie Strode. And even as the sequels got uniformly terrible, it was fun watching Donald Pleasence's dialed-in performance as the doggedly determined shape-hunting psychiatrist. While it's fair to say that Loomis's seemingly never-ending quest to take Michael down drives him to increasingly unhinged places, by the time we reach Halloween 5: The Revenge of Michael Myers, he's become a manic parody of his paranoid former self. His rather awful treatment of Jamie Lloyd throughout the film, namely using her, a victim of trauma, as bait to lure Michael, is often raised by fans as feeling inconsistent with his established character. Again, his descent isn't entirely out of nowhere, yet it's pushed too hard too fast in Halloween 5, where despite Pleasance's solid effort, it comes off as unintentionally comical. Number 6. Cotton Weary in Scream 3. Cotton Weary was a minor but significant character in the original Scream, a man who was imprisoned for the rape and murder of Sydney's mother, Maureen. But at film's end, we learn that Cotton was in fact innocent, and in Scream 2, he has a much larger role as a principal character who ends up saving the day. The sequel ends with Cotton killing villain Mrs. Loomis, making peace with Sydney, and seemingly receiving the fame he'd been craving as a wrongly convicted man. But amid its many other problems, Scream 3 kicks off by introducing us to a Cotton whose subsequent fame and fortune has gone entirely to his head. In the film's pre-title sequence, Cotton is now an obnoxious celebrity with his own talk show and a clear taste for every last decadent thing Hollywood has to offer. While fame does of course change people, often for the worse, in Cotton's case he scarcely feels like the same stoic badass from Scream 2, mutated here into a soft, irritating jackass who is rather effortlessly killed by Ghostface at the end of the sequence. You can argue that Cotton's likability was obliterated in order to make his death a little less upsetting to fans, but why? Let us feel the pain, rather than reworking him into a grating stereotype. Number 5. Pinhead in Hellraiser 3: Hell on Earth. The first two Hellraiser movies depict Cenobite leader Pinhead in a more mysterious and ambiguous fashion. A terrifying figure for sure, but one who knew the virtue of cutting a fair deal. It wasn't until Hellraiser 3: Hell on Earth that the character became an out-and-out villain, and fittingly this was also the first film in the series to verbally refer to him as Pinhead. With the death of Pinhead's human alter ego, military officer Elliot Spencer, in Hellraiser 2, the third film gives us meaner, more overly evil Pinhead, who ventures on a killing spree and even turns some of his victims into Cenobites. Separated from the human side of his persona, Pinhead is a card-carrying bad guy this time around, much to the protest of franchise creator Clive Barker, who intended for Pinhead to remain dead after Hellraiser 2, and Julia Cotton to become the franchise antagonist. The studio had other ideas though, wanting to reinvent Pinhead as an unquestionably full-throttle evil antagonist. Number 4. Mick Taylor in Wolf Creek 2. As this list has made clear by now, it's not uncommon for horror movie antagonists to have their personalities significantly altered for the sequels for any number of reasons. And perhaps one of the less discussed examples is Wolf Creek's psychopathic Australian serial killer Mick Taylor. In the first film, Mick at least presents an initial facade of charm and likability, a larger-than-life Aussie bloke whose sadistic tendencies are suppressed beneath the surface until he decides to act. But Wolf Creek 2 opted to shed any and all character subtlety, reworking Mick into a more outlandish character who makes considerably less effort, that is, no effort at all, to conceal his ill intent. Mick basically gets the Freddy Krueger treatment in the sequel, a villain we'll be getting to shortly. The more realistic psychopath of the original film replaced with a more humorous, quip-happy maniac. Number 3. Freddy Krueger in A Nightmare on Elm Street 3: Dream Warriors. Perhaps no major horror icon has undergone as blatant a character change as A Nightmare on Elm Street's Freddy Krueger. The first two Elm Street films were considerably darker than the rest of the series, even with their inherently heightened premise, Krueger being a sadistic serial killer first, while buffeted with occasional flecks of savage black comedy. But starting with A Nightmare on Elm Street 3: Dream Warriors, Freddy was not so subtly retooled into a campier, more wisecracking antagonist, cemented by Freddy's infamous quip while killing Jennifer, "Welcome to primetime, bitch." Dream Warriors, a generally fun and creative film, really only got the ball rolling as the subsequent sequels increasingly turned Freddy into a goofy cornball caricature of his former self. By the time he's eating the souls of teenage boys off of pizza, it's fair to say that Freddy has strayed far from his original terrifying persona. Robert Englund still gives it his all, of course, but in the pursuit of bigger box office success, the producers reworked Freddy into a sillier, less imposing character. Number 2. Jill Valentine in Resident Evil: Afterlife. The second of Paul W.S. Anderson's Resident Evil movies, Resident Evil Apocalypse, introduced fan-favourite video game character Jill Valentine. After this, however, the character inexplicably sat out the third movie before reappearing at the tail end of the fourth, Resident Evil Afterlife. Yet this was far from the Jill we'd met prior. Beyond sporting a drastically different look with dyed blonde hair, a purple sneaking suit, and a mind control device attached to her chest, Jill was now a bad guy, spearheading the impending assault on Alice and the assembled heroes. Obviously, to anyone familiar with the games, it wasn't terribly surprising to see Jill make a sudden, involuntary heel turn, given that this is precisely what she did in the 5th game. But for anyone only watching the movies, it surely felt like a huge, albeit enforced, 180 for the character. Number 1. Ash Williams in Army of Darkness. To casual fans of the Evil Dead franchise, Ash Williams is best remembered for being a quip-spitting badass, even though this aspect of his character didn't fully crystallise until the 3rd film, Army of Darkness. Rather, in the original Evil Dead, Ash is a pretty straight-laced, reluctant protagonist, a totally ordinary dude who is understandably terrified at the situation unfolding before him. Evil Dead 2 gave us a more charismatic, larger-than-life Ash for sure, before Army of Darkness saw him reach the full height of his zany powers, dropping one-liners left and right while touting a more arrogant, cynical and embittered personality. Hell, even director Sam Raimi himself called out Ash's sudden persona shift on Army of Darkness's DVD commentary, noting that Ash was acting out of character compared to how he was presented in the first 2 movies. And yet, Army of Darkness is so much damn fun, in large part due to Campbell's magnetic performance, that it's tough to care all that much. And that concludes our list. If you think we missed any, then do let us know in the comments below. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell. Also, head over to Twitter and follow us there, and I can be found across various social medias just by searching Ellie Littlechild. I've been Ellie with What Culture. I hope you have a magical day, and I'll see you real soon.